Welcome back to another great interview special, everyone, for the Golden Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Pat Voss. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today's interview guest is an atheist YouTuber, philosopher, lecturer. It's TJump. TJump, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate the opportunity. Awesome to be here.
So let's get right into it then. You do this way more often than I do. You know, I'm just releasing a new video every Friday, but you have been doing this. It almost seems like almost daily, where debates, live streams, lectures, conferences that you would go to. How long have you been doing what you do now?
Full time for 3 to 4 years now, I guess. It's been a while. Yeah. I don't think I do it every day. I think I do it a few times a week. Definitely try to re-upload stuff on other channels, which just gives me a lot of content, which that's good. But yeah, probably at this rate for about 3 to 4 years.
And what got you involved to start doing this? What was it that said to you, okay, well, I'm going to start doing this YouTube channel. I'm going to start debating theists or other people that have different ideas than I do. Where did that start for you?
I think it started because I had major depression for most of my life, and I was just hated talking to people for any reason ever. And one of the things I was trying to do to overcome that was talking with professors about philosophy stuff, because I was into philosophy at the time. I tried to get into that as a way to solve my depression. And so I'd invite out professors to coffee as a way to start to get over my social anxiety and be able to talk to people in person while doing something that I could tolerate talking about, which is philosophy. And I would record my conversations because they were pretty long conversations and I couldn't remember anything or most of it after a few days. So I would record them and upload them to my YouTube channel as a way to memorize the conversations or be able to go back and watch what I missed. And I started getting a decent following from doing that. It was very strange, and I started getting money from it, which made me very happy. And so I was able to turn it into a career.
And some of the people you've debated in the past, and I know one of the names as far as who has run into me on Clubhouse, the app, most recently is Darth Dawkins. Can you kind of give us, for those who are not aware who that is, can you kind of give us a quick rundown of who Darth Dawkins is and what that kind of person presents to you for a debate?
He is a parody of Chevy Chase in all of his movies combined at the same time. Yeah, he's bad. Darth Dawkins' presuppositional apologetics says you can't know anything unless you believe in God. And if you deviate in any way from that, then he's going to yell at you and say, for some reason, and interrupt and say, what is your grounds for intelligibility? How do you solve the one and the many problem? He's going to list a whole bunch of the biggest problems in philosophy and say, because you can't solve them, you need God because God can solve them. He can't explain how God solves any of these, but he's going to claim that only God can solve them. And he's going to yell at you every 3 or 4 words you put out if you don't agree to it.
So it's interesting because what it sounded like a little bit is you're describing, in a way, like a huge version of God of the Gaps a bit, where he's saying, hey, listen, if you can't come up with the answer right now, I'm just going to assume this is what it is and just not listen to anything you have to say.
Yeah, sort of. So he's saying that here's a bunch of things philosophy can't solve. I'm going to imagine God can solve them. Therefore, God. That is correct. It is a huge God of the Gaps.
And how do you, not necessarily with Darth Dawkins, but with a presuppositionalist apologist, how do you deal with talking to someone like that and trying to get through to them without necessarily, yelling at them or being angry with them? Because a lot of people have accused me of being very angry or upset with them, and I'm trying to find a more calm way of dealing with presuppositional apologetics.
Well, a few things. One is the yelling is just fine. Like, yelling gets tons of views, so yelling at them is great. But if you want to have to try to have a productive conversation, it's best to try to answer questions that they can't answer, and answer them better. So, like, what is the grounds of knowledge? I think therefore I am is better than God. So that's a way to give a better answer to one of the big problems in philosophy. And if you can show that your ideology can answer the problems better, then that shows to the audience at least that yours is better than their ideology. But I think that if you actually want to engage, go with one of the better precepts, not Darth Dawkins or Mr. Batman. Like there's Eli Elia, Tyler Vela, and those kind of guys who are intellectual precepts, and they'll actually have a conversation with you. And you can explore their epistemology more and actually get some progress made. But yeah, Darth Dawkins, I would say yelling is good. Just go with the yelling.
You know what I would do, and I didn't even think I would do this coming into this interview, but I have a friend of mine, Karsten, who is a presuppositional apologetic or apologist, and I would love to have him. I can link the two of you if you'd like to have him on your show as well, if you'd like to kind of explore how his mind works, because I would consider, since he's a friend of mine, normally I'm not befriending, Darth Dawkins types, so I would consider him intellectual.
Sure,
uh,
sure. Send me his info on Facebook or whatever.
Absolutely. Another thing is, with you saying, you love philosophy. I'm just curious because for me, and I get a lot of crap for this on Clubhouse, is that I say I'm pretty much a person of science, right? And I'm talking about experimental science, something with the scientific method involved. And I hear a lot of people say, well, I want to talk to you about philosophy, and I want to talk to you about the philosophical way of doing things. And I almost feel like, to me, at least with the people that I've encountered prior to yourself on Clubhouse, and YouTube and other platforms, that doesn't really solve a lot of things. Now, how do you use it to say, I love philosophy? How do you use that to help solve any kind of disputes or questions that people may have for you? Because I would really like to hear it from you.
Yeah, philosophy is garbage. It doesn't solve anything. The point of philosophy is more rhetoric. So it's like addressing people's words and word games and being able to express answers in a compelling way that makes sense, or in a more sense than the other argument. So it's philosophy is more about language in a sense. There is some philosophy prior to science in establishing like how do you differentiate imagination from reality, and that's a decent way to assess the usefulness of philosophy. Is how can you go from cogito, just basic you exist, to some kind of rational epistemology. That part's philosophy. But then once you get to the science part, science is philosophy plus a way to differentiate imagination from reality, whereas just basic philosophy isn't. It's just imaginary. It's all of it's imaginary. So philosophy is not great for much other than basic epistemology and um, learning how to communicate in the most articulate, most compelling way possible. Those are usually the more useful aspects of philosophy.
Okay. The reason I asked that way is because I've been asked, well, why do you only go with one side of things? And I said, well, I don't necessarily go with one side of things. I just say that at the end, one is going to need the other, right? Like you said, there's some way to kind of get yourself into a conversation, but once you're there, how do you finish it? And so I always put it like with my friend, Dr. Lawrence Krauss, I put it to him this way: is even though he is considered a theoretical physicist, sure, on a chalkboard all day, you can talk about how to make a model. But on top of the model, you do have to run that through a lab, right? Lab or over to an observatory, something like that, right? There has to be some kind of testable way to do things. So is it wrong of me to necessarily cut out that middleman and just jump the line basically straight to what presuppositions do we make as humans every day to say, well, this is the real world around me. This is me getting out of my chair and eating my cereal or something. Is it wrong of me to just jump to that? Or should I maybe have a better base first before jumping into that with a lot of, let's say, theists?
Depends what your goal is. Like, if you do that, they're probably going to accuse you a lot of scientism stuff, because science isn't debatable. It's not something you just go into a debate room and debate. Oh, did evolution happen? Like, it's not up to you. It's up to the data. And so scientific debates are really settled in papers and academic like discourse of the actual testing, the work. Debate doesn't really do have any impact on science. No one cares what happens in a debate in science. It's all just, here's what the data says, this ideology, this position wins, this paper wins because it has the most data. Philosophy is more about compelling people. So if you're going to go straight to the science, it's not going to be very effective in debates, especially in Clubhouse or Discord or whatever, because it's just, there's no point in debating those things, because it's just either you trust the data or you don't trust the data. And if you don't, you want to prioritize something else, then you're not going to convince them by showing them the data. So philosophy, I think it's useful to have a strong base in philosophy if you want to compel people. But if you're just trying to understand truth, you don't need it at all. You just look at the data, forget the philosophy. It's just for fun mostly.
So if I was to say, and this is something I do say, so maybe I'm going about this all wrong. I say the main point of me doing these rooms on Clubhouse is to encourage critical thinking skills. Is something I realized that I wasn't doing when I was a theist. When I was a believer, a Christian, I believe that the Christian God was real. I believe that Jesus died for our sins. Noah's Ark story was real. Adam and Eve actually existed. All of these things, right? But that's lacking critical thinking skills, at least to me now, looking back on it. So what I'm trying to do is not necessarily deconvert anyone. I'm really just trying to teach them critical thinking skills in all aspects of life, not just all but one. And I'm not sure if I'm doing a great job then, because I do jump to some of the science, you know, having a little bit of a background in physics. I do try to jump to a few things that they have questions for, like Big Bang cosmology, or life on Earth evolving from simple to complex. And I'm trying to help with that, but I feel like I'm not doing a very good job, because it always comes back to, well, I would rather just make whatever emotional assumptions I want to and be okay with that. I didn't really ask you to know your answer. And I'm trying to get around that so that they're not so emotionally defensive about it, and so it can be a conversation.
Yeah, so definitely going with the science is not the way to do that, because they're not going to trust the data. A good way to do that is street epistemology. So street epistemology, Anthony Magnabosco, Reed Nice-Wonder, Peter Boghossian, those guys created a very good linguistic system in order to ask questions that cause people to doubt, to think about their own position, and to have cognitive dissonance. And that's really what is required for critical thinking, is for you to be able to create challenges in your own worldview to cause cognitive dissonance, for you to doubt, and then to try to find a better, more coherent way to look at the world. That's essentially what critical thinking is, or critical thinking skills are. And so just pointing out that people are wrong by saying, here's what the scientific facts are, and they disagree with what you said, so you're dumb, isn't really going to work. It's not going to build critical thinking skills. But what does build critical thinking skills is learning how to approach a topic in a neutral way that doesn't seem very aggressive, that can cause people to introspect about their ideology and see their own contradictions. That's really what'll help people build critical thinking skills in a way that will be productive, because they won't see it as it being an attack. They'll just be like, oh, this is a really interesting question, and try to think about it. So like, what is your confidence in that? Is that really the reason you're believing? If that was proven false, would you stop believing? Like, those kinds of questions that street epistemology asks are very good ways to build early critical thinking skills.
Okay, well that answers my question then. So I'm not doing it correctly for sure. I would say for your debates, and I noticed some of these live streams that you do are hours long. I mean, hours long. Is that because you're taking your time to run through everything, or do you just have? And I don't want to use the term garbage time, because it's just not. It's not. That's not what I mean. I don't mean it as a negative, but I know that I've been in rooms before where I've had rooms that are on for 4 or 5 hours, but some of that time is not necessarily breaking apart different arguments or doing anything. We're just kind of talking back and forth and kind of resetting our brains a bit. How key is that to do a reset if you're doing a long room, mentally resetting for each party involved, just to kind of get your bearings about you again, in case it's kind of droning. It feels like it's droning on.
I don't know. So like those 4 or 5 hour streams are usually, I do like a show for an hour, 2 hours, and then I do an after show where I just go into Discord and let anybody come in and ask questions, just kind of like Clubhouse, where it's just an open conversation. And then you just get like a revolving door of people asking random questions, some about philosophy, some about politics, some about my morality or religious or the previous debate. I don't really take much time to reset unless there's just like nobody asks a question. But so I'm usually playing a video game or something, and listening to people on Discord in the background. And they ask a question, I answer the question. So it's not usually, I don't usually require a reset normally, since I'm mostly focused on the video game anyway.
Then one of the last questions I had for you is, of the people that you, and I know you've done this a bit, but of the people that you've spoken to, either done modern day debates or the conference, I believe you'd come back from those, who was someone that you respected enough and said that they kind of gave you a challenge, something that you couldn't just feel like you were going to just leap over them mentally, like intellectually, you just didn't leap over them. It took time to really dissect what was going on in the conversation in order to come out what you felt. And I don't want to make it a winner or loser type of deal, but that you can come out feeling confident in what you gave to the conversation.
Yeah, most of my conversations with professors are like that. I think the best examples would be like my first and second conversations with Rob Coons. He's very intelligent, and it takes a lot of mental effort in order to process his arguments in Thomism and then to make a coherent response that challenges his position. Another would be Robin Collins, the physicist slash philosopher who deals like one of the world's leading experts in fine tuning. He makes a lot of very good arguments, and it takes a lot of thought in order to create a compelling counter argument, to put his argument in a narrative that makes sense and break it down and be able to present counter arguments in such a way that he's like, oh yes, that would be a valid counter position, or a valid objection in some way. Those would be two big ones. Other ones would be like my Richard Brown conversations. He's a professor at LaGuardia in New York. Had a lot of conversations with him. Those are the good examples. Randall Rouser, I think he introduced me to fallibilism a while ago. That was a good conversation. So my early ones with him were really good. Those are probably the best ones I can think of.
So if you could debate anyone, who would that be for you? And even, I shouldn't just say just one, maybe if you can think of a couple of people that you would like to debate that you haven't, who would that be for you?
Well, definitely like William Lane Craig. That would be the big apologist in the field. Frank Turek, any John Lennox. Those would be very big name, big money debates. I'd like to do those because it would be very good for my platform. Intellectually, I don't know, because I don't. The debate is mostly for show. It's mostly for the audience to challenge your ideas, kind of like a blood sport or a competition, chess or whatever. In order to gain knowledge intellectually, usually takes more time, more than a debate, and like actually looking at data and comparing research. So debate is not the best place to learn things. I'd just like to debate Donald Trump. That would be fun because that would be giving me lots of views. Yeah, I would.
Well,
like,
you know what makes money.
yeah, yeah. I would like to get more into politics. I'd like to talk to politicians more genuinely about why certain policies are enacted and why certain policies aren't, and what it takes to actually get things passed. That would be an interesting one. I would also like to get more into economic debates, capitalism versus socialism, why capitalism works better. Those are things I like to do. I don't know who the best people to debate those on would be. It's an interesting thing to think about. But yeah, those would probably the big ones that right now would be like the big apologists: William Lane Craig, Frank Turek, John Lennox, those guys.
And I have to ask, so before I ask where people can find you on social media, I should ask first, for your YouTube channel, when is your next upload coming, and what is that dealing with?
I don't know. I put it in my calendar and just forget about it mostly. That's my strategy. Put it in calendar, then look up the dates and say, here's what's next. So I think let's see. Social media, calendar. I have 2 Wednesday. 2 of them on Wednesday.
Okay.
One with
Okay.
Biscuit and one with Hake. Those are going to be interesting. Hake is definitely going to be interesting.
And for social media, where can people find you? And by the way, guys, anybody watching this right now, don't worry. All of TJump's links will be in the description box below, so you won't miss out on anything. You can follow him everywhere on social media, and definitely go check out his YouTube videos. But go ahead. Where can people find you on social media?
YouTube.com/TJump is my main one. I also have all the other social medias. I just don't look at them as much. YouTube is the best. It's the easiest for sure. And discord.io/TJump if you want to just hop in and ask questions at after show or whatever. Those are the two main ones I think I'm working on right now. I'm trying to build my Twitch, but it's not going well. I only got like 500 something. Twitch sucks. It's terrible at promoting. But yeah, so twitch.tv/TJump if you want to help me build my Twitch platform.
I appreciate it. TJump, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I wanted to really pick your brain a little bit about how you approach things, because again, for someone like myself who to this realm of things is fairly new, I've been in radio broadcasting, things like that, but not for this specific type of topic. So I really wanted to get you on because it's always great to learn from somebody who's better at doing what you would like to do than you. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for inviting me on. Really appreciate it. It was a fun chatting. And also, next time you have Lawrence Krauss on, could you ask him what exactly emergent space time is and what it emerges from? I wanted to ask him that when he was in my Discord live stream, but I was asleep, so I couldn't.
Well, absolutely. And so today is January 28th. So February 14th, right on Valentine's Day, that is when I'm recording the episode. So that Friday is when it will be airing the following Friday after Valentine's Day. So I will ask him, make sure that I get that in there, and we'll get that answer for you. Okay.
Yep. Thanks. Awesome.
No problem. My guest today has been TJump. Go check him out on YouTube. Go check him out on Twitch and build his Twitch community as well. And then I will see you for the next episode. I'm Pat Voss, the host of the Golden Knowledge Podcast. I'll see you later.